ज्ञातव्यं चक्षुरुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितमेन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कथामयं ददाति स्वप्नादितं वन्देऽहं घोषविदकमलं स्फुरणविष्णवंश श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सगणरघुनाथं तन्तास्तुं साधितं साधुतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितं श्रीकृष्णकरुणसिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते प्रणमामि हरिप्रियमाञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यः च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा। Welcome to this discussion on Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are into chapter 5. We have completed the first part of this chapter 5, which is titled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. We are right now in the second part of this chapter, which is fixing mind on Atma, Karma Yogi frees bondage. We are in shloka number 10. Let's get to the shloka number 10. ब्रह्मण्य आदाय कर्माणि संगम त्यक्त्वा करोति ह लिप्यते न स पापेन पद्मपत्रम् इवम्बशा. So one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful reaction as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Now, if you see the purport, Prabhupada is giving an explanation of what Brahmani means. So Brahmani, let us read the purport. Here, Brahmani means Krishna consciousness. The material world is a sum total manifestation of three modes of material nature, technically called the Pradhana. The Vedic hymn Sarvam hi etat Mandukya Upanishad 2 Tasmat etat Brahma Nama Rupam Annam cha Jayate Mundaka Upanishad 1.1.9 and in Bhagavad Gita 14.3 Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma indicate that everything in the material world is the manifestation of Brahman. So this concept of Brahman, according to Baldev Vidyabhushan, is dependent upon the approach of a person. So if a person is a bhakta, then this Brahman means Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. So in Prabhupada's purport, in all the purports, if somebody reads, Prabhupada directly gets into the point that we have to become Krishna consciousness. So it is a bhakta platform. So Prabhupada's explanation is bhakta platform. Now, Prabhupada is trying to explain here something uh, which we need to understand. So the devotee offers all the fruits of activity to Krishna. The sensory activities are all offered for Krishna's pleasure. But when Karma Yogi acts, the Krishna conscious person understands Brahman means Krishna and he does all works. That is what Prabhupada is telling, Prabhupada is bringing out Krishna consciousness here. But when there is a Karma Yogi is not aware of Krishna. That absolute truth is Krishna. Karma Yogi will think that it is material nature, which is for which the is surrendering the results to. How is this? That is what Prabhupada is mentioning the Vedic hymns and Bhagavad Gita. So now if you refer to shloka number 14.3, it means Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma Tasmin Garbham Gatamyaham Sambhava Sarva Bhutani Tato Bhavati Bharata. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living entities, O son of Bharata. If you take the next shloka, Sarva Yonishu Kauntaya Murtaya Sambhavantiya Tasam Brahma Madhyone Aham Bija Radapita. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed giving father. So Brahman principally in this shloka means for a karma yogi it means material nature. And since the title of this chapter is Karma Yoga Action in Krishna Consciousness, we need to understand this perspective. That is why Prabhupada also is bringing out this point. So he's saying that this material world is a manifestation of Brahman. And although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause, which is Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Ishopanishad, it is said that everything is related to Supreme Brahman or Krishna. Thus, everything belongs to Him only. One who knows perfectly well that everything belongs to Krishna, that He is the proprietor of everything, and that therefore everything is engaged in service of the Lord, naturally has nothing to do with the results of activities, whether it is virtuous or sinful. So, Bhakti Yogi Bhakta knows that everything is to be done for Krishna, whereas Karma Yogi does not know, does not have this understanding. He does not know that absolute truth is Krishna. He thinks that it is the material world. So here Prabhupada is giving one more point. The Lord also says in Gita 3.30. So if we go to 3.30, Mahi Sarvani Karmani Sanyasa Adhyatma Chedasa Nirashir Nirmama Bhutva Yuddhasya Vigatasvara. Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims for proprietors, free from lethargic fight. Now, why is Prabhupada mentioning this? The conclusion is that a person without Krishna conscious acts according to the concept of material body and senses, but a person in Krishna conscious acts according to knowledge that the body is the property of Krishna and should therefore be engaged in service of Krishna. We engage, we surrender the results because of the work done by the body to Krishna because the body belongs to Krishna. That is the understanding. So the Karma Yogi, no, so Karma Yogi does it thinking this body is part of material nature. So I will engage it for, I will not get attached to the result because it is going back to the material nature. Whereas Bhakta thinks that it is for Krishna. So that is the subtle understanding. Now, the only more important point here is Padma Patram Vivam Basha. The example that is given is that lotus leaves does not allow water to stick to it. When we do work without getting emotionally attached to the work, that karma gets just washed away. It does not stick to the soul. This characteristic of soul is very remarkable, and devotee can stay detached from all the activities, taking the example of lotus leaf. So this work is then referred to as Brahmanya Adaya Karma. We do it only for Krishna. We resign everything for Krishna. So that is the point. Now let us go to the next shloka. Kayena manasa buddhya kevaler indriyarapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam tvaitva atma shuddhaye. The yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, even when with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. Now, practice of devotional service is generally done at multiple levels. The first level is out of fear. We are afraid that of not following God's instruction because of subsequent punishment. Therefore, we practice devotional service. Second, we practice devotional service to fulfill some specific desire. So we do some activity for Krishna, expecting something in return. Third is practicing devotional service as a duty, which is sadhana bhakti. This is following the instructions of spiritual master for the purpose of purification so that we can get liberated and go back home, back to God. Then fourth one is practice of devotional service at the highest level, which is manifest as spontaneous love and devotion. Between sadhana bhakti and spontaneous love and devotion, nothing majorly changes. It is only we do sadhana bhakti for the purpose of purification, and once purified, we execute the same activities. So there is no difference in the activities, only the purification. The one is before purification and one is after purification. So in this verse, one important point is Kevalayar Indriya Rapi. Kevalayar Indriya Rapi means it has two connotations. When we chant Hare Krishna, um, we can chant it in two ways. We can engage all the senses, including the mind. So that is much more fully engaging. Other way of looking at it is that when we chant Hare Krishna, at least one sense should get involved in it. So the best scenario is everything, including the senses, mind, including the senses, or the other connotation is in the worst case scenario, at least one senses. That is the sense of speech, at least should be engaged in the service of Krishna. So that is the connotation, at least one senses. The other connotation is that even the senses, including the mind. In spiritual life, we understand that senses are source of bondage. Senses are source of bondage, and thus we try to keep the senses away from material engagement. Um, but to purify the senses, we need to use the sense in service of Krishna. So that is why in this shloka it is called as Sangam Tattva Atma Shuddhaya. Here, the senses are involved for the purpose of purification. Thus, by engaging the senses properly, we can purify the senses. So, the most difficult sense is the sense of taste, which is Jnanendriya, and sense of talking, which is a Karmendriya. Both are found on the tongue. When this sense is used to eat prasada, that is sense of taste, is engaged for eating prasada, and this sense of doing work, which is talking, is engaged for chanting the holy names, Kevaler Indriyarapi, then this sense gets purified. This sense can bring ecstasy. So as it gets purified, it brings ecstasy. The senses are typically designed to give us misery and agony. But when they become purified, they bring ecstasy. So, for example, there is one interesting shloka in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let me share my screen. That shloka is Tunde Tandavani Ratim Vitanante Tundavali Labdaye Karna Krodha Kadambini Gatayate Karna अर्बुद्धेभ्य स्पृहं चेतप्रज्ञ संगिनी विजयते सर्वेन्द्रियां इन्द्रियाणां कृतिं नो जाने जनित क्रियादभि अमृत कृष्णेति वर्णद्वये. So, what does it mean? I do not know how much nectar the two syllables Krishna have produced. When the holy name of Krishna is chanted, it appears to dance within the mouth. We then desire many, many more. When the name enters the holes of the ears, we desire many millions of ears. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activities of the mind, and therefore all senses become inert. Tunde tandi tandavini ratim vitante tundavali labdaye karna krodha kadambini gatayate karna argudebhya spraham cheta pragna pragna prangana sangini vijayate sarvendriyana kriti No jane janite kiyadbe amrita krishneti varnadvaye. This verse is a statement of wonder and amazement. The person dives into the ocean of Krishna consciousness and hence understands how big is the ocean, how deep is the ocean. At this stage, these senses will give pleasure and ecstasy of Krishna consciousness in at an infinite level. Currently, these senses are giving me misery and agony as the senses are not yet purified. So to move from state of agony to state of happiness, we need to exercise patience, tolerance, and determination, and thus we engage the senses steadily in the process of purification, which is engaging them in service of Krishna. Thus, even the senses can be engaged in service of Krishna. That is what it means. It can be the wholesome, that is all the senses, the mind, intelligence, and all the senses included. Okay, that is Kevala Indriya, or at least one of the senses, which is tongue. So in Bhagavad Gita 2.58, there is a Yada sammatte chayam kurmo anganiva sarvasha indriyani indriyartebhyas tasya prajna pratishtita. One who is able to withdraw his senses from the sense objects, as the tortoise withdraws his limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect Krishna, perfect consciousness. So instead of withdrawing the senses, even the senses can be engaged in the service of Krishna. So bhakti is sensory spirituality in many ways. So there are two words generally used in term when it is applied to senses. One is sensory and another one is sensuous. So sensory is more a word which conveys functional meaning. Sensuous means something which attracts the senses. So, what is this functional meaning of engaging the senses? For example, when we term sensory perception, this means whatever we are perceiving with our senses. Sensory spirituality means we are engaging the senses to perceive the reality and engage in spirituality and therefore make progress towards Krishna. Why? To go back home, back to God, come out of the state of agony, enter into the state of pleasure. Thus, the point is that even the senses can be involved in the service of the Lord for the purpose of purification. So, it is not which attracts the senses, but engage the senses. That is for sensory perception. Thus, the point is that when we engage the senses in service of Krishna, then gradually mind gets full, the mind gets full, the intelligence gets full, and overall, this entire mind, intelligence, and senses become purified. That is why it is called as Kevalaya Indriya Ravi. Thus, by doing this constant engagement of senses in in service of Krishna, the senses are purified. Tongue usually binds us in karmic reaction because we speak nonsense and we eat sinful things. So, but the same tongue can liberate us when we engage in chanting the holy name of the Lord and eat Krishna Prasad. So, I'm just sharing the screen. So, Srila Prabhupada is quoting an interesting verse from Bhakti Rasamrta Sindhu. Here, yasya haridakshe कर्मण मनसा गिरा निखिलस्य अपि अवस्थासु जीवन mukta sa uchyate. So the key word used here is called as Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta. By engaging Gira, Gira means body. One can, so engaging one's body, one can get liberated. So we are making the best use of the bad bargain. Getting into the material body is uh, is like putting ourselves in jail. But we are engaging that in service of Krishna and trying to come out of it. So here it is important to understand what this Jivan Mukta means. So let us. So there are two types of muktas. One is Jivan Mukta, and other one is Videha Mukta. So Jivan Mukta, Srila Jiva Goswami is explaining there are three types of Mahabhagavatas. So Jivan Mukta is a soul who has attained liberation while is still living in the material body. So for all practical purpose, he is liberated. This is going to the reason that the person has no material attachment. So that is Jivan Mukta. And is no longer, so some of the characteristics of Jivan Mukta is no longer affected by the material nature. So he is Gunatitaha, and he has realized himself that he is different from body and mind and sees all beings equal and remains detached from the sense pleasure, and he continues to perform duties without ego or desire. So that is Jivan Mukta. So this stage includes full realization of Brahman, but may not include realization of personal form of Lord unless there is a devotion, bhakti is present. So Gunatitaha can be impersonal realization or could be personal realization. Personal realization is possible only when uh, bhakti, only when that person, liberated person, engages in bhakti. Uh, Now, Videha Mukta, we need to understand also Videha Mukta. Videha Mukta is one who attains final liberation only after death. He has left the body and gone back to spiritual world. So the soul no longer accepts a material body. So it is after death. Jivan Mukta means uh, he is living and he is living in the material body and still he is liberated. Videha Mukta means after leaving the Deha means body. After he leaves the body, he goes back home back to God. So if such a soul is a devotee, he enters into spiritual world, Vaikuntha or Goloka. If the person who is liberated practiced impersonal realization, then he merges into Brahman intelligence. So, so that is this is something which we need to understand. So, Jivan Mukta and Videha Mukta is there both in personal realization as well as in impersonal realization. Now, there are three types of Mahabhagavata. So, one who has attained uh, either Jivan Mukta or Videha Mukta are Mahabhagavatas. That means they are topmost devotees. So Jiva Goswami is giving three categories of them. One is Gunatitaha and Swarupa Siddha. Gunatitaha, not Swarupa Siddha, neither Gunatitaha nor Swarupa Siddha, but he is Sthira. So what is Gunatitaha? Gunatita means who has transcended the three modes of material nature, which is goodness, passion, and ignorance. Okay, Swarupa Siddha means he fully realized their eternal spiritual identity in relationship with Krishna. So, beyond modes of material nature, knows his relationship with Krishna. Beyond modes of material nature, not understood his relationship with Krishna. Um, n- has not gone beyond the three modes of nature nor gone beyond, there is no understanding of his relationship with Krishna, but he is steady in his practice of devotional service. So now the first category is the highest class of devotee. This first one, Gunatita and Swarupita, is the highest class of devotee. They have realized the specific Swarupa, that whether he is a Gopa, Gopi, servant, friend, and so on. And he is not only free from the modes of material nature, but he is engaged actively in service of Krishna in his eternal constitutional position. So they have both legs in the spiritual world. They are in the material world, but they have both the legs in spiritual world. In material world, in material world, they are just present to spread the message of Krishna, but simultaneously they are into service of Krishna in the spiritual world. Now, there's an interesting story about interesting pastime with respect to Raghunath Das Goswami. So Raghunath Das Goswami is a person who is in the material world, but for all practical purpose, he is in the spiritual world. So during one of the holy festival in Goloka, um, one of the festival in Goloka, Radharani and Shakis, they prepared sweet rice pudding with great love and devotion for Krishna. So Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, absorbed in a deep devotional mode, offered this kheer to Krishna through his devotional imagination. And Krishna was pleased with this heartfelt offering and spiritually accepted and fed that kheer to Raghunath Das Goswami. And Raghunath Das Goswami overate that kheer. So, following this intense act of mental offering and spiritual feeding, Raghunath Das Goswami developed symptoms similar to that of indigestion and fever. So a physician was called for and he examined his pulse and diagnosed him um, through his physical symptoms. The doctor concluded that Raghunath Das Goswami has physically overeaten care, and that was the reason for his illness. So Vittal Nath Goswami, who is the elder brother of Raghunath Das Goswami, clarified that Raghunath Das Goswami for many years now has survived solely on drinking few drops of buttermilk and had never indulged in overeating. So there was a little bit of confusion here between the Vaidya or the physician and Vitalnath Goswami ji. Then Raghunath Das Goswami, he clarified that and he revealed that the indigestion fever symptoms were actually because of the profound spiritual experience which impacted his physical body. And this profound spiritual experience was overeating the sweet rice which was offered to Krishna. And then subsequently, he was treated with the medicine for indigestion, and he became good. His physical condition improved. So this pastime illustrates the extraordinary power of devotional service, where mental offerings and spiritual experiences can produce tangible effects on the body in the material world. So this story is preserved in a oral and realized tradition of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and was narrated by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura to his disciple. So Raghunath Das Goswami, he was acting in material world, and in spiritual world is actually a Manjari who is assisting Radharani and Shakis in serving Krishna. Raghunath Das Goswami is a Swarupa Siddha. That means he acts at the level of spiritual world and material world in the self same body. They are just waiting for current body to exhaust their tenure and enter into the material, no, leave this material world and go back to the spiritual world. So they have both their legs in spiritual world. They are just waiting for exit from the material world. So that is Gunatitaha Swarupa Siddhaha. Then there is Gunatitaha, but not Swarupasiddha. So they have transcended the three gunas, three modes of material nature, but they have not yet fully realized the specific spiritual form or relationship with Krishna. So they may have general devotion, but not fully situated in the Swarupa, specific Swarupa, that is Gopa, Gopi, or servant or friend. Such persons are progressing towards the full spiritual realization. They have one leg in material world and one leg in spiritual world. And the third one is neither Gunatitaha nor Swarup Siddhaha. They have not yet transcended the three modes of nature. They have not fully realized the spiritual identity, but they are fixed in their devotional practice. They are steadily progressing and possibly in the Nishta or Ruchi stage. They may have a great potential and are still towards marching towards the full realization. They have their both legs in material world, but their eyes are fixed on the spiritual world. The point is that Krishna is making these great souls or yogis um, progress towards a definite goal, which is spiritual world, and these devotees are working for purification, and this purification helps them to attain liberation. So, going back to the shloka, कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिन कर्म कुर्वन्ति sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye. So yogina sometimes means bhakti yogis or karma yogis. In our case, we should take it as followers of Srila Prabhupada, we should take it as bhaktas. So we do duty so that atma shuddhaye, so that um, our body, mind, intelligence, and senses are engaged in service of Krishna, abandoning attachment to the work only for the purpose of purification. Sangam Dvaita Atma Shuddhaye. Kevaler Indriya Api means we engage one of the senses, and gradually it is mind, intelligence, and senses all put together, which becomes the instrument for service of Krishna, and then gradually we liberate ourselves and move from material world to the spiritual world. So that is the point. Let us go to the next shloka. Yukta karma phalam tyaktva shantim apnoti naishtikim ayukta kama karena phale sakto nipadyate. So the steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the results of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. So now we need to understand the results of his activities. Activities are very important for us. Let us understand this further. We know that chapter 5 is an extension of chapter 3, where we learned about karma yoga. So we learned that we have to act. When we act with fruits in mind, we are fruity workers or karma kandis. But if we are elevated, that we can practice jnana yoga, even then it is better to practice karma yoga because this is much easier and the results that you get are similar to jnana yoga. And Krishna also tells that Arjuna to practice karma yoga to set an example. Janaka, who was very spiritual, he was spiritually at an elevated level. He also practiced karma yoga. Krishna also practices karma yoga, and Therefore, he says to Arjuna that he also, if he practices Karma Yoga, he can set a good example rather than renouncing and going to forest. He should work as a matter of duty and help in establishing Dharma in the Bharatavarsha. Therefore, he has to fight. That is the point Krishna was making. Now, in 5.12, there is a much better understanding of this. So here we can relate to the same graph, but with some specific shlokas. So let us look at this. Attached to results of work. So in 5.3, we learned Neyasa Nitya Sannyasi Yona Dveshtina Kamshati uh, Nirdvandahi Mahabaho Shukam Bandhat Pramukchate. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of activities is known to be always removed. Such a person free from all duality easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated. O mighty Arjuna. So, so now we can see that we can, in the beginning, we can get attached to the results of work, but it is better to work without getting attached to results. There is one point which we need to understand before we get into this is that the shloka number 12. Let us go to the shloka. So here there is a comparison. This verse gives a comparison between the person who acts with attachment to results, greedy for fruits of his labor, and a person who acts without offers the results of activities to Krishna. So there is a comparison here in this shloka, shloka number 5.12. Similarly, there is one more shloka in which is 5.2. Sannyasa karma yogascha niyashreyasya karauva tayastu karma sannyasa karma yogo vishishyate. So, the personality of Godhead, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation. But of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. So here, 5.2 is comparing devotional service and let's just karma yoga and jnana yoga. Renunciation of work is more like a jnana yoga. Then 5.6, sannyasas tu mahabaho dukkam aptum ayogataha yogo yukto munirbama nachirena adhigacchati. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. So, there is a jnana yogi, there is a karma yogi. Karma yogi is engaging all the fruits of his work for uh, Brahman, and jnana yogi is avoiding all the work. So, avoiding all the work is not sufficient because he is not able to get liberated because he is not engaging it for the higher purpose. He is not engaging this activity for supreme. Therefore, he may not be getting liberated or he may not get happiness. Whereas a person who is acting for Krishna, who is acting with the main purpose of acting for Krishna and surrendering all the results of it for Krishna, he gets liberated. So there is always a comparison. One is acting for Krishna and um, no activity. Acting for Krishna helps in liberation, happiness. Because person doesn't act for Krishna, he will not get happiness. So these are the things. So one is attached to result, other one is not acting, inactivity, and there is no relationship with Krishna. Then activity and relation with Krishna. So one is comparison with the Karma Yogi, Karma Kandi, Jnana Yogi. So these three comparisons we must always keep in mind. So now when we go to this slide here, so one who acts with results, keeping one who wants to act for results is Karma Kandi. He will not get happiness. Jnana Yogi, because he is not acting, his inactivity is there, he is having no work, but he is also not related with Krishna, therefore he will not get happiness. Whereas Karma Yogi, he is detached from the results of work, and because he is acting for Krishna, he will get much higher level of happiness. Now, there is one more shloka. Before we get into details of this, there is one more shloka, which is shloka number नेयस नित्य सन्यासी यो न द्वेष्टि न कांक्षति निर्द्वंद ही महाभाव सुखम बंधा प्रमुच्यते. One who neither hates nor desires the fruits of activities is known to be always renounced. Such a person, free from all duty, easily overcomes material bondage and is completely liberated, O mighty aunt Arjuna. So 5.2, 5.3, 5.6, this is giving comparison between Karma Kandi, Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, and um, Karma Yogi, and the results attained by all. That is what is depicted here in this. So attached to results of God. Neyasa Nitya Sanyasi Yona Dveshti Nakamshati Nirdvanda Hi Mahabhav Sukambanda. So one who is attached to results will not get. So we should get detached from the results. And when we get detached from the results, so sannyasa karma yogascha niyashreyas karaubo tayostu karma sannyata karma yoga vishishyate. So karma yoga, the renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, work in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. This is much better than renunciation of work. Merely renouncing sannyasyastu mahabaho dukkam aptum ayogatah yoga yukto munir brahma nachirena adhigachati. Merely renouncing all activities, not engaging in devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve supreme without delay. So a jnana yogi may not get happiness. So if he comes to karma yoga platform, then he will get happiness. So it is better to work, but work without attachment to the results of work. Renunciation of work and inactivity is not going to be give happiness, because inactivity is difficult and it is not natural for us. It is not natural for us. Therefore, we have to work in this way. Work as a karma yogi. But karma yogi does not know whom to surrender the results. He surrenders it to material. Therefore, we have coming to the there are three shlokas which we need to understand to get a better understanding of what this karma yoga is and what action in Krishna consciousness is. So that is where the chapter 3 concepts are getting applied as action in Krishna consciousness. We will get into these details in our next session. Thank you very much. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhuvayascha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. ग्रंथराज भगवद गीता की जय, जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय. गौर भक्त हरे कृष्णा.